transforms, okay, as well as how do you include a style dynamically, that XSL file, and also the structure of the XSLT processing. So these two documents are being passed like an XML document with the help of this processor. We have seen the XSLT structure. So transformations for presentation. So if you want to transform, you have to use this particular style sheet type and href, whatever the style sheet you are going to include. We have also seen the example. And also the match and apply templates we have observed. So if it matches a particular item, for example, in our example, we have seen a plain object, right? For that plane, whatever the particular stylings are provided in the XSL, those are applied. In the similar way, there is another way of applying through apply templates. And we have seen the dot expression, which refers to the current node. So today we'll just see the processing repeated elements, the same example that we have discussed yesterday. In that, if you have, for example, till now we have seen only a single object. For plain object, you are applying the XSL. Now, if you see the multiple objects in your XML, you have multiple planes. In that case, how do you iterate through the different planes? So we are now matching the template and we are using for each. So for each loop we can use in our jQuery, and JavaScript we use the for in loop we have discussed, right? Similarly in XML we can use the for each loop to iterate through the different planes. So that is what we are talking in the PPT. So here is the plane. For each, for different planes you are applying. For how many number of plane objects you have, that many objects will be applied this particular styles. Okay, that is what the content in the PPT here. In sort, select is equal to year. On basis of year we are going to sort here. Okay, now we move on to the XML processes. As we have seen in the earlier diagram, it processes the documents to get the output. Okay, I'll show you this right once again. Okay, XML processor will convert into XSL document. Okay, processors provide the tools in programming language to read in the XML documents, manipulate them, and to write them out. So there are certain tools that are provided here. So what is the main purpose of the XML processors is like we have four main purposes. We need to check the basic syntax of the input document, replace the entities. So entities we have discussed, right? Entities from a single character to a multiple lines of code, we can have these entities like LT, less than, greater than, and all. In order to replace the entities, like in your DTD, you have written like entity P in quotation some pen. So in place of P, it will be replaced with pen. So in that case, these entities are used and insert the default values specified by the schemas or DTDs. So these also help us to insert some default values if you, while we are using our schemas or DTDs. And if a parser is able and it is requested, validate the input document against the specified schema or DTDs. So for parsing also, if a certain parser is available and if it is requested, in that case, it will validate the input document against some schemas or DTDs. So if you have written certain DTD, document type definition, which has certain rules or declarations, we call them, right? And the rest of the other documents, if they have to follow this schema or DTD, this will be validated with the help of these processors. So the basic structure of XML is simple and repetitive. So providing libraries support is reasonable. So this will be done in the background itself. We don't need to worry explicitly. So these kind of processes will help in taking care for producing the output. So these are the certain examples. Okay. And there are two different standards or models for processing. Now that we have seen the processes and what do they follow actually? What are the models they are using for processing the documents? So parsing, the process of reading in a document and analyzing its structure is called a parsing. So basically, we parse a string to a text kind of things, right? So what does parsing mean is like the process of reading it. It will read out through the document and analyze its structure. Okay, and the parser provides as output a structured view of the input document. So it will parse the document and it will provide a readable format of the output document. Okay, and the SAGS approach. This is one of the approach or a model. As we discussed here, we have two different standard models for processing. One is the SAGS approach and another is the DOM approach. So in the SAGS approach, so before going through the approaches, SAGS means a simple API for the XML. So it will process the documents. DOM also is a model which processes the documents. Okay, simple API for XML. This the full form is. API means application package interface. Okay. XML document is read in serially. So what happens here? Generally, DOM we have a tree structure, right? Similarly, it will also follow some structure in SAGS approach. When your DOM is actually loaded, when your HTML page is loaded in your browser, then an internal model called DOM is loaded, which is of a tree structure, right? So if you want to move from one element, like from HTML, you have head, you have title, body. So if you want to inside the body, you have certain elements like paragraph, div, and all those things, right? If you want to move from one element to another element in the DOM, we can jump from one position to another position. Okay, it is not mandatory to go serially, whereas in SAGS approach, the document is read serially. Okay, if one tag is read, then it will go to the next tag. So it will follow certain order. Okay, as certain conditions called events are recognized, event handlers are called. So when it reading through the different lines like div, paragraph, span, etc., if whenever in the middle it finds any events, then particular event handlers are called like on click or on blur, on focus, different kinds of events which we have seen in our JavaScript. So the program using this approach only sees part of the document at a time. So here, when it is moving serially from top to bottom, so when it is actually processing, it can see only a certain portion of your document at a time. It cannot view the whole document. Okay, whereas it is the vice versa is the DOM approach. It can jump from one place to another place in your DOM tree structure. Okay, the parser produces an in-memory representation of the input document. Because of the well-formedness rules of XML, the structure is a tree. So DOM by default has a tree structure. And what are the advantages over the SAGS? So parts of the document can be accessed more than once. So SAGS approach is like it follows serially, right? So it is not possible to jump into different places and access multiple elements. Whereas the parts of the documents can be accessed more than once. More than once, you can access different parts of the document. Like you can access a div element multiple times. Okay. In SAGS, what happens? It has to follow the order again in order to get back. Okay. The document can be restructured. We can restructure a document here. Access can be made to any part of the document at any time, and processing is delayed until the entire document is checked for proper structure, perhaps validity. So, what happens here? Unless the document is completely loaded, unless the document is completely loaded, like all the different tags, events, images, everything are loaded, then only it will start the processing. Otherwise, it will not start the processing in DOM. So one major disadvantage is that a very large document may not fit in memory entirely. So this is what the major disadvantage it has. Like if you have a very large document, it may not fit in the memory. Okay, because it has an in-memory representation of the input document. So you have to understand like there are two different models, DOM and SAGS, and what are the advantages of SAGS? Sorry, DOM over the SAGS. We have to see. And the last concept in XML is the web services. So this is not a complete portion of the XML. This basically talks about the backend. So in our introduction classes earlier, we front end and a backend, right? So here in the front end, whatever the browser, whatever the page that you are viewing, right, the information is provided from the backend. So how does that particular information flow from backend to the front end? That information can be in a form of XML, which is useful for data exchange, but it has to pass through some medium, right? So this medium is facilitated by the web services. So web services is nothing but a URL. That URL carries some data. It can be a JSON data, or it can be a XML data, or it can be a text also. Okay, this web service basically carries all the data from a backend to the front end, and these web services are to be hosted on some server like PHP server, Apache Tomcat server, or any kind of server, IIS server, Windows IIS server. So we have certain servers on which we actually deploy our code. So because of the deployment of the code, we'll have some URL, and when we hit the URL, we can access the particular website online anytime and anywhere. Okay, so these web services are mainly useful for transferring the data from backend to front end. So in your further sessions in the backend technologies like PHP or Perl or Ruby on Rails, you will be understanding more on the web services things. So here there are some highlights in these two slides actually. So these web services allow interoperation of the software components on different systems written in different languages. So allow the interoperation of software components on different systems written in different systems means different servers. You can, like for example, you can write Java web services in Java language on that particular server. Okay, and as well as you can write some Node.js scripts on that particular server. Language is Node.js. In some cases, language is Java. In some cases, language is Perl. Differs. So you can write web services in multiple languages. Okay. Servers that provide software services rather than documents. Okay. They provide the software services like a kind of a web service URLs they will provide. Okay. Rather than documents, it mostly carries some data. And remote procedural calls. So these are some in details of the web services like DCOM and Corba provide the implementations. So it's a Microsoft specific first thing, and Corba is a cross platform. So these are in turn related in-depth concepts of these web services that you will get to know in further classes. So these are like DCOM and Corba are the two technologies actually. They use the different protocols for the interoperability and all those things. So there are three roles required to provide and use the web services. Okay, and these are service providers, service requesters, service registry, and the service providers must develop and deploy the software that provide the service. Okay, on your server there should be a software deployed in order to develop and deploy. Okay, and the service descriptions, web service definition language, WSDL we call it as. Okay, provides a standard way to describe a service. Okay, for example, in your page you have some information about products. Okay, so Flipkart is showing some products like some television, electronics category. Okay, you have shopping, you have electronics one thing, and you have some kitchen, cookware, and all those things, right? So for each display, for each item to be displayed, we can have an individual services written in the web services. So if you call the particular link, okay, that will pick up the products and display it on the page. If you want to see some kitchenware, you will have some another URL which will pick up from that particular server and it will show the URL, respective URL. We can have a services written. So the universal description, discovery and integration service provides a standard way to provide information about the services in response to a query. So whatever we have requested, based on that request, we can get the information with the help of these services. SOAP is used to specify request and responses. So SOAP is another form of like you have a JSON data, we have a SOAP as well. Let me show you some description about the SOAP services. We call it as services only. Standard Object Access Protocol. Okay, that we call it as. So this is one of the protocol or service, an XML-based specification that defines the forms of the messages and RPCs, and the root element of SOAP is envelope. So again, SOAP has certain structure. Envelope contains SOAP messages, description of the web services, what it is about, and supports the exchange of information among the distributed systems. So whatever the internal systems are there, it will help in the transfer of the information. Okay, so we have different services. So SOAP is one of the service which facilitates the which facilitates for the web service for request and responses. Okay. So maybe now we will discuss about the Ajax, right? In that case, we will understand about how a web service URL can be. Is talking about what is meant by Ajax and what are the different approaches to Ajax. Request phase, response phase. Okay. So till slide 9, we will be covering here in this class, and from slide 10 to remaining 14, you will have Ajax with respect to PHP, Ajax with respect to Ruby on Rails. So in today's class, we will discuss about Ajax with respect to JavaScript. In JavaScript, how you can implement the Ajax. We need to understand first what is the main purpose of using Ajax. So till now we have seen the HTML, which is a static part, and then CSS, which adds styling to the markup language, and now and also we have observed how to make the pages interactive by using JavaScript, which has certain events, okay, through which we are able to create one dynamic web page with the help of JavaScript. Now your front end is completely done. Okay, like you have HTML, CSS, you have a complete web page with all the styles and the interactivity. Now you till now you are just working on the static data, but if you want to have the dynamic data from the backend, like backend will provide the web services, right? And that web services will help in getting the information, or it carries the data from backend to front end. So in between, from the front end, some call should be some request should be sent to the backend so that we can get the response, right? So the process of requesting the information from the front end is done with the help of Ajax. Ajax is nothing but asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So the advantage of Ajax is like whenever you are making an Ajax request to retrieve certain information from the backend, so whatever the web page you have, it is not necessary for all the your web page will have like head section, body, and the footer, right? So when you make an Ajax call, the advantage is like whatever portion of the page you want to update, only that portion will be refreshed but not the entire web page. Okay. If the entire web page is refreshes, it's again a kind of a performance issue, right? So with the help of Ajax, we can update the web page without reloading the page. So only some portions of the page can be updated. So that is the main advantage of using the Ajax. It requires the data from a server after the page has loaded, and it receives from the server after the page has loaded. Okay, so it is mainly for exchanging of information. You can send the information as well as receive, and you can update certain portions of your web page without refreshing the entire web page. So what are the different types of we have like methods or we have in Ajax? We'll see now. That is about the introduction of Ajax. So this is your basic HTML page. You have a doc type declaration, your root tag, body. You have certain elements with IDs or classes. Okay. You have a button. You have a JavaScript method called onClick load document. So this is your event. So in this particular function, there should be some call to the backend which helps in getting the information. Okay. So here that is the you can see the example. So this is my on click, okay, load document. I clicked on this button, okay. My web page is now loaded with some information. When I click on it, some information it came from which place from Ajax info.txt. So this can be any URL like .asp if it's a .NET application, .NET service. Okay, otherwise it can be a .php, ajaxinfo.php or ajaxinfo.txt or JSON. Okay, so now we are able to retrieve this information from the external file. Okay, it's not a static thing, it's an external file. So we need to understand what are the different elements like XML, HTTP request, on ready state change, and what are the different statuses we have. So all these together we will learn and we will understand how an Ajax call is made. Okay. So Ajax is asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Ajax is not a programming language. Okay, it's not a language. It just uses a combination of the browser inbuilt XML HTTP request object. Okay, this is a request object through which we can make a request data from the web server. Okay, this is an object, predefined object, and JavaScript and HTML DOM to display the data. When you use the on-click event here and you use the tags. Okay, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, it doesn't mean that it will carry only some XML data only, but it can carry a JSON data as well. So what is a JSON data? You need to understand here. JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation. Okay. Let me open some notepad and show you. So JSON is the data that can be pulled from your backend. Okay. I'll show you how to notation, right? So here this will be an object like key value pair, name. So this is your how a JSON this is a simple JSON notation like an object notation. If you have array of elements, you can have array of objects like this. Okay, it is separated by comma, and again you can have another element. This we called as array of objects. Okay, this is a simple JavaScript notation. So it is sent via internet to the server, processes that particular HTTP request and creates a response and send back to the browser. So now you got the browser. Process the return data using JavaScript, like whatever JSON data you are receiving from the server, right? You need to parse the data, okay? In order to, like if you want to view it as a string, okay, you have to parse that particular object, JSON object, you have to parse it, you have to convert it to a string, and then you can use the particular data, okay. So an event occurs in the web page, the page is loaded, a button is clicked as we have seen, an XML HTTP request object is created by the JavaScript, like here we have seen, right? We are creating an object here. You know how to create an object, right? Using the new keyword, we can create an object, XML HTTP request. Here you can have whatever variable you want. For quick understanding, we have kept here x HTTP. So using this object, you can create an object, and that object dot on ready state change. Okay, we will have some ready states codes and the statuses that we will go through here. So when it is a success, okay, status 200 means it's a success. Page status 404 means page not found. Okay, this ready state 4 means okay, it is a success. In that case, we can access the this dot response text. This dot response text is nothing but this response which is present in this particular text dot txt file, or whatever it is, ASP or PHP or any external file. So we have to open this xhttp dot open using get method. We have seen the get method, post method, right? Using post method, you can pass the parameters. Get method, you can get the details. So it is true, asynchronous true. Okay, as true means it's an attribute. Asynchronous true means it can allow the multiple requests to happen at a time, and we are sending this particular request. So because of this, whenever you get this particular status code, as you, both of these has to be are mandatory, and if it is a success, we will get the response dot text. This dot response dot text we are placing in this particular ID. Else you can write your mandatory code like page not found or something you can write, document dot write of something. So you have to create an XML HTTP request object, okay. All modern browsers support the XML HTTP request object. An XML HTTP request object is used to exchange the data with the server. So the main purpose is for exchanging the information. So again, this particular XML HTTP object will not be supported across all the browsers. We have to make sure. So all modern browsers means from Chrome, IE+, Firefox, Safari, Opera, all these have a built-in XML HTTP object. Like you need, how do you actually create an object where some x is equal to new XML HTTP object? Whereas older versions of IE 5 and 6 use the ActiveX object. Instead of this object, they will use the, so this is how you need to create an object. This is a syntax. So nowadays, mostly we are not using any ActiveX object because most of the real-time applications have been supported from IE 10 and Edge also, Microsoft Edge. From IE 9 onwards, we are supporting. If you are going for a very old browsers like IE 5 or 6, then in that case, this is the very rare scenarios you can find it nowadays. So this is the specific code for the IE 5 and 6. Access across the domains. For security reasons, modern browsers do not allow access across the domains. And this means that both web page and XML it tries to load must be located on the same server. Okay, so this is very important for your future learning also. So what happens here? There is some JSON data present in one URL, right? From the backend it is coming. So your application is your front end like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So both has to be on the same server, deployed on the same server. Okay, otherwise you cannot load the JSON data from suppose if your HTML front end code is on one server and if your JSON data is on another server, okay, you cannot access it across the domains. We call it as across the domains, you cannot access it. It is mandatory that both has to be present on the same server. Okay, the examples of okay, here we can see the data regarding the older browsers. So when we do the real-time example now, you will understand more about cross-domain, okay? How it has to be placed on a server. I have some local server on my machine called XAMPP. I will show you how to start a server, how to deploy the code in that particular server and run the application. So this is all description about the methods. Get or post, which we have already discussed. What is the URL? The file location. We have seen the true right here. Get method, the URL or a .txt or a .json or .php or something which has this particular text, XML or JSON, everything. True means you are actually making it asynchronous. False means synchronous. Asynchronous means it will all the threads will run parallelly. Okay. Send means you are sending the request to the server used for the get request. Send of string, send the request to the server used for post request. So we have two types of request, get request and post request. So get request, you are just sending the hit and you are getting the response. In the post, what happens? In the post also you need the response, but you have to specify certain attribute. For example, in your college you have 20 students. If you want to retrieve about one particular information about one particular student, in that case how do you retrieve it? You have to pass the unique id of that particular student, right? So in this send you can pass the id of the particular, this is a scenario I'm telling you. You have to pass that id, so according to that id that particular information will be retrieved here. So there are set request header, adds a label or value pair to the header to be sent. So whatever the headers you have, you can have send this information. So these are the different properties and descriptions of the XML HTTP request object. On ready state change. Here we have seen, right? Now we understood this object. Now we have to see the properties of the object. We have understood about the open and send. We have understood about the object. This portion we have to see. So here on ready state change defines a function to be called when a ready state property change. Ready state is nothing but this particular XML HTTP request has different 5 status. One means server connection established, request received, processing the request finished and response is ready. Request is initialized. So finally, when it is 4, ready state is 4, request finished and response is ready. Okay. This dot, this is nothing but it is referring to this particular object. Okay. This keyword in JS we have seen, right? Ready state is 4. So when the request is finished and response is ready from the backend, we can use it. And response text returns the response data as a string. So response text means here we have seen, right, this dot response text. This response text will have the output, like whatever this URL is providing, that will be placed, and this dot status is equal to 200, so it is a success. Okay. Status okay, 403 forbidden, 404 not found. Okay, these are the different status we have. So when the status is 200 and ready state is 4, this dot response text will have your data. Okay. You are placing in this particular demo ID. Here you are placing your data. So this is all about how do you make a Ajax call in JavaScript. About the get or post. So get is simpler and faster than post and can be used in most cases. However, post request, always use the post request when a cached file is not an option. Update a file or when you are actually accessing the information from a server or a database. some related to some person or anything. Okay, you do not need any cached files, like it's not a temporary data, you need some updation to be done on the database and then you need to retrieve. In that case, it is always preferably to use the post request. And sending a large amount of data to server also, post has no size limitations, it is preferably to use post. Sending the user input, post is more robust and secure than get. Okay, so I have said like this can be a .json or .asp or .php. So this mostly you'll get from your knowledge from your backend. So in your post request, when you do a get request, this is your simple syntax. You have, sorry, we have get. You can pass the certain parameters like first name and last name and get some data. So that is the reason it is not secure. So post will be always secure. While sending parameters, you can either send here using the get request, you can append here, and using the post request. So whenever you use the post request, you need to set some request header like content type. So MIME tags we have seen, right? So similarly, we need to set some request headers, and we can send the parameter here, first name, last name, or if it's an ID, if you want to send to the backend server, you can send it. That's it. That is the main difference of the syntax between the post and the get request. So asynchronous we have seen, right? To send the request asynchronously, the async parameter of the open method has to be true here. And sending the asynchronous request is a huge improvement of the web developers. Many of the tasks performed on server are very time consuming. Before Ajax, this operation could cause the application to hang or stop. For example, earlier what happened is like if you have multiple requests, okay, um, we used to handle one request at one time. So we will stop or block the other request. In that case, it has become very time consuming. So using the introduction of like after the introduction of the Ajax with the asynchronous true concept, we are able to, like if one process is going on, we can have the other process run parallelly. So that is the advantage here. So you can just, I'll provide the URL. You can just go through the Ajax concepts. This is what all mainly includes in Ajax. Now we will go through the real-time examples. I will open my editor here. Just give me a second. Editor. So the advantage of using this editor is like it will have the local host, like no need to install any Tomcat server or XAMPP server. So it itself take care of the uh, server calls. Like if you have any JSON data, like JSON data we have seen, right, we cannot get the data from if they are not like front end code and JSON data are not residing on the same server. I will show you the two ways using brackets IO and without my editor how do I use a server to make the Ajax calls. Okay, first way we will see here. I'll increase the font size. Just I hope you can see my editor. I was talking about the some JSON data, right? So this is the sample JSON data I am using. Okay. It will start. You can validate this JSON by using JSON validator. So whenever you start your programming, make sure like you validate the JSON you are getting. So how do you validate it? We have a URL called JSON lint. Okay. Type JSON lint in your Chrome browser and you will get a URL. I'll show you that one. So before starting your coding, make sure like they will provide right from the URL you will able to see the JSON data, and using this JSON lint, copy the JSON data and paste here and click on validate JSON. Then it will throw a message like results valid JSON. So if it is valid only, then start working on that particular JSON. Okay. You know, with and I have saved it using the extension called .json. Okay. Now in this I want to retrieve the first name and last name. So I have to perform certain logic in my HTML, right? So I'm using HTML5. So in real time you will be starting your project like this. I mean you'll have some folder structure like inside your HTMLs, JS and CSS. I have only HTML here. So here I am having some button and I have some on-click function called as show customer. So customer information will be listed here. So I'm using this ID. So within this ID, I'm going to show whatever information I want to retrieve it from the backend. So on click, what happens here? I'm using the internal JavaScript. I'm not using external JavaScript here. Okay. In big projects, you can use the external JavaScript files. So this is my JavaScript code. So within the internal script, I have some global variables declaration I will do here. So within the function, so whatever variables I am going to use, I am declaring it. You can use comma to create multiple variables. Okay, I have created a XHTTP object on ready state change. If this is success, in that case what I am doing, I am taking my this.response text. Okay, what is there in my this.response text I can show you in an console. Okay, console.log of data. So whenever you work on retrieving the data, right, whenever you have success, try to place it in some variable and do console.log, so that whatever information you are uh, whatever information you are getting from the backend, you can see it. Let me show you the console.log here. F12. This is your console. Clear it. Initially clear it. Now when I click on this, please click. I will make you understand about the breakpoints as well. So before that, see the console here. You have got your entire JSON data, var data. Okay. So whatever the JSON data you are getting from the backend, you should be able to make this console request and view it. Okay. So this is your JSON data. Okay. Now we'll just move back again to our editor. JSON you are getting, right? You need to pass that JSON.parse of data, because my customer.json have a notation called string notation, right? I need to pass this data and see the console again, like after parsing, how is my data. object, right? So from this object, I want to see, I have converted the string into an object. Now that I passed it. From this object notation, I want to retrieve whatever information I want to uh, show it on my web page. Object dot first name. So how do you access the elements of an object? So now this is your entire object. Okay. After passing, it became an object. If there are no quotations here, there is no necessity of parsing. Okay. If it is in a string format like this for key, then it is mandatory to parse the data, otherwise you will get an error. So if it is not a string notation for the key, please make a note for the key value pair. If the key is in a form of a string, please parse it to make an object, because you can access only the objects in JavaScript. Okay, if you want the output here, as it is in a string notation, I have passed it in my response, and I am trying to retrieve data res dot first name. Then my output will be John. Okay. So let's go back to the code here. What I did, I have taken a variable called text. I have dynamically created an element, ULLI element. So this is my dynamic tag. Data.res is my JavaScript element, through which I am going to get the elements. So quotation elements will always be the static HTML text that has to be displayed on your web page. So whenever you write any HTML tags, please use the quotes, and you have to append to the data dot elements, whatever elements. So I am actually placing it in the text hint place. Okay. So here it will be the my output will be displayed in my web page. So this is the success state. If you want to see whether it is a success or failure also, you can have some alerts inside it. Okay, whether it is going inside the function or not, if you want to check, you can have the alerts. I made a get request and customer.json async true. If I have multiple calls, I can make it as async true, and I have sent the request successfully. So let us see the final output here. My entire text changed, and I got John and Smith, which I have appended it dynamically. Ajax is a very simple. Okay, you can iterate through different elements depending upon the JSON. Okay. So I have first I have printed this first name and last name. So you can have multiple, whatever the logic you want to write, you can write within this success. Okay. Within this already state chain, you can write all the logic. Okay. So that is all about the Ajax call. So here you have seen the .json, right? So in further sessions, other faculty will teach you about .php. From PHP, how do you retrieve the data? I'll show you one more simple example here. I have a json.text here. So from the text file also I can get the information. Okay. My text file has hello Jntuk students. I have saved it. Okay. This is my text file .txt, and this is my HTML file. So again I have used the same on click. So within the demo I am trying to get this dot response. You can observe it in a console. I'll show you. Hello Jntuk students. You can see, right? Oh sorry, I need to share my screen. Small alert, right? I have kept an alert inside the success state to check whether it is working or not. So this is the output. Here if you can observe on the top right, you can see the URL as 127.0.0.1 colon 61969. So this is nothing but my local host, my local machine. If it is actually a server, like you can see HTTPS colon something, okay. This is the local host. Local host means my local machine server, okay. So using this brackets IO editor, I have an inbuilt server. Okay, I have this editor is providing me with the provision of the local host. If I use another editor which doesn't have this provision, like Notepad++ doesn't have this, in that case what I have to do is like I have to install a XAMPP server, which is an open source. You can download it, Tomcat, Apache also. So these are the servers you can download. So within the servers, you can have your code. I'll show you where exactly you have to place the code. Then you will get a contact the Apache and MySQLs are there na here. You have to click start on both these buttons. Your server will start running. Okay. Don't worry about the servers. The further faculty will be explaining you. So this is the basic things you have to know as I now at this point of time. You need to click on the first two buttons so that your server will be started. Now you might have installed that in your program files, right? But the XAMPP, go to your program files. You can find XAMPP folder in your wherever you have installed it, maybe your C drive or D drive. Now I have htdocs folder. Okay, inside the htdocs you can place whatever code like HTML plus JSON together, you have to place it. I have some code called as a JQ mobile. So this is some jQuery code I have. I will show you. I will run it and show it for you. So inside my JQ file, I have the CSS files, I have images, I have JS, I have my JSON file and index file. So whenever you write your application, the start page we generally name it as index.html. This index.html will have my code. This is my JSON. Both has to be deployed on this htdocs folder. Please remember, if you want to run this index.html, what you have to do is like first you have to start your console exam control panel. I have shown you, right? You have to start both of them, and then what you have to do in your browser is has slash jq, whatever folder you have in the htdocs, whatever you have jq underscore mobile, right? jq underscore mobile slash index.html. So I have two folders. So if it is a single folder, you can use it. See what happened. Localhost colon. I have two folder structure. Inside I have my index.html. This page is actually developed using a jQuery mobile framework. It is one of the JavaScript frameworks only. It is responsive. Okay, it can fit into your mobile, your desktop also. When I clicked on it, it is all JSON data. I'll show you the files here. So this is a sample jQuery mobile framework page. So how do you access it using your local host? We have to start your server. It can be a Tomcat server also. It depends. I have a XAMPP server installed on my machine. So inside a XAMPP folder, after installation, I have the htdocs folder. Inside the htdocs, place whatever folder you have. Start the server and then in htdocs, place your code. And in browser, you have to run using your IP, some 128.59. Your folders or localhost slash your folder slash whatever file. Generally, it is preferable to write index as your name. So this is how you generally make it. I'll show you some jQuery mobile code also. Give me 2 seconds. Used to tell the server explicitly. Okay. So that is the reason we are mostly working on this editor. So now let me open the jQuery mobile code. Mobile framework code. Here actually it is required to have some source files. You need to download the jQuery mobile dot whatever the latest version we have and jQuery.js. So without these files we cannot use this particular framework. We have a default jQuery mobile.css which can be downloaded by the in the internet, and this is my own predefined style. So we have certain attributes called data role page. This is a single page application you can consider. Like you can have all the components in a one page, and there is no necessity for the entire page to reload. Only some portions of the page can be refreshed accordingly. Like if you have a header, body, left pane and the footer, right? You can go on refreshing the body page without refreshing the entire page. So that is actually a single page application. So this is all a jQuery mobile code. So this is a simple framework of a JavaScript. Anyone can get it easily by referring to some tutorials online. If you are interested, you can go through this jQuery mobile framework as well. So it has certain attributes. Instead of footer tag in HTML5, we have data role. We have a footer tag. Explicitly, we have some, like Bootstrap, we have classes, right? We have some classes in a jQuery mobile also. So this is the JSON from which I am picking the data. So this is a very large data, complex JSON data. Once you know how to create an object using foreign loops, you can iterate through the different objects and pull the information. If you do more hands-on, you can be familiar with all these things. In my images folder, I have all the images, and this is my CSS files. jQuery mobile CSS is downloaded from internet. This is a library. Okay. Similarly, JS, we have some libraries which min.js, mobile.js, jQuery.js. First three files are actually from libraries we have downloaded. And script.js is my custom JS, where I have written a Ajax code. So you have seen a JavaScript for the JavaScript for this, like Ajax JavaScript you have seen, right? We can use the Ajax call for jQuery as well. jQuery is a JavaScript library, another language. Okay. We have certain attributes called as getJSON. So this is again the different syntax we have. We'll use almost all dollars here, dollar notation in this language. Like you have made a get request, right? You can use getJSON keyword. Data.json is your JSON. This is your dynamic HTML. Using dollar dot, like for each you have seen, right? We'll be using dollar dot each. So here the concept will be same across different programming languages, but the keywords differ. So make sure, like, if you are very good at JavaScript, you can simply learn AngularJS or Bootstrap. Bootstrap is again a CSS thing, like a framework only. Bootstrap is a framework which facilitates us with a responsive UI and all those things. So I'm iterating through the different key value pairs. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay. So here using like we have a foreign loop, right? We have seen in your JavaScript, we have dollar dot each in your JavaScript jQuery. Dot inner HTML, in place of dot inner HTML, we are using dot HTML of output. So this is the Ajax call in jQuery language. So this is some edit. I can provide you some URLs for the jQuery mobile framework. Okay, official URLs we have. So this example is all about jQuery mobile. So finally you can see the output here. Be like according to the iPhone resolution or whatever phone you are using. I click on block. Then this is the dynamic JSON data. Okay. The last concept I want to explain you is how to debug your web page. So whenever you are having any errors, right, you want to debug your web page, using which you can find out your errors very easily. For making sure like you get the data appropriately from the backend. Okay, inserting the breakpoints, right? So here using the this Firebug or can see. So go to sources tab. Click here. See, here you got customer.json loaded. You clicked it. Let me show you. You can see the response here, right? First name, last name. Okay. In network, you can have your JSON here. So elements, you'll have your HTML elements. Console, you can see whatever you have printed it. And sources, you can see your, if you have a separate JavaScript file, you can see your, like in HTML only, I have written my own SRC, right? If you have separate JavaScript file, it can be seen as ajax.js here. Okay. Insert a breakpoint here. You can see the numbers here, right? You can just tap on this number. Just a second. The code in another file, .js file, so that I'll be able to place the breakpoints. Otherwise, I cannot place the breakpoints on the HTML file. See your code. Okay, it's always like preferable to have your breakpoints in your JS file. Okay, so this is one of the Angular JS application, but I just want to show you how a debugging can be done. Okay, I have inserted a breakpoint here. So it got paused in your debugger, right? Wherever I have kept a breakpoint. So using like these are navigating through the different functions of my JavaScript file. Okay, I'll just close this one. I'll just go here. That actual JS file, when you keep it, when you hover on this particular element, you can see the value at that particular instance. Okay, then you can just click on step over to next function call, or this one pause the script execution, or you can, if you click on the step over next function call, you can get to the next line. There it will stop and show you the value, and again like this, if you want to exit, you can exit the particular file. So using these breakpoints, the main advantage is like you can find a particular value at one point of time. You can like go step by step and debug the particular value, and you can find where the actual error is. Okay. So always try to have your proper folder structure, like HTMLs, all HTMLs in one. Uh, like if it is a single page application, you'll have only index.html. Otherwise, if you have multiple HTML pages, place them in HTML folder, respective JS folders and CSS folders. Try to follow this pattern. So this JSON data.json will not be a local file. If you get this JSON from the external web service URL, then you will include that URL directly here. Wherever you call, actually in your JS file, you will make the Ajax call, right? So instead of JSON.data, it will be HTTPS colon whatever the web service URL which has the data. We have to take the data from that particular URL, and always proper folder structure you have to follow, like this: CSS images, JS, index.json, and this will be your external web services call based on it. So I'll just mail you the sample code for the Ajax which we have seen earlier. Okay. Instead of a jQuery code, I will send you the JavaScript code. Please go through the code and try to do your own manipulations. Okay. That is all about Ajax. So if you have any queries regarding any of the classes, you can post me a mail so that I can reply through the mail. I can provide you the solutions as well. So from Monday, Pearl faculty will be taking the classes. We'll introduce him on Monday. His name is Balakrishna.